In the mid-14th century, this Franciscan friary in Kilkenny was thriving. It would have been home to about 20 or 30 friars, all busy studying and hearing confessions and preaching in Kilkenny and in the surrounding countryside. Local patrons were supportive of the friars and their beautiful church. The fine east window behind me was paid for by a certain Dame Isabella Palmer in 1321, and in the 1340s, a group of citizens clubbed together to fundraise for the building of the bell tower. During those decades, a member of the community here had a project underway. He was writing Annals, year-by-year observations on local and international history. His name was John Clyn. He started his account way back at the creation of the world, but then he leapt forward to the date of the founding of Rome, then leapt forward to the birth of Christ, and then there are brief entries for things like the coming of Palladius to Ireland in 432, the birth of St. Bridget, the coming of the Saxons to Britain, and the invasion of Ireland by the Anglo-Normans, John Clyn's own people. Throughout this early section, he's relying on other historical sources, other sets of annals. But from around the year 1333, the annals are clearly Friar John's own work. They're full of detailed observations that show him to be very knowledgeable about the high politics of this part of Ireland and the relations between the Anglo-Irish and the Gaelic Irish. It's a fascinating read, but it changes entirely in September 1348. He reports then that crowds of people from all over Ireland were coming on pilgrimage to St. Mullins, not far from here. Bishops, the nobility, and all kinds of men and women came to St. Mullins, he says, to wade in the water, moved by devotion, he says, but also moved by fear. Fear of what? A plague. The big plague of the Middle Ages, the Black Death. Friar John explains that the disease first arrived in Howth and then spread to Drogheda and Dublin. Up to Christmas of that year, he claims that 15,000 people died in Dublin alone. He reports plague news from the continent as well, and news that he's heard through the Franciscan grapevine. He says that in Drogheda, 25 Franciscan friars have died. In Dublin, 23. He says that confessors quickly followed penitents to the grave. That's a hint that these friars who died contracted the plague while ministering to the sick. Then, inevitably, Friar John reports that the plague has reached Kilkenny itself at the start of Lent 1349. His words are devastating. Just physical contact with the dead and with the sick led to immediate infection, he says, and death soon thereafter. And it's not just individuals who are dying, but whole families, he says, husband, wife, and children taken away together by death. And then things get very personal. Friar John recognizes that death may come for him soon. He leaves history behind and the great deeds of others, and he begins to write in the first person. Now I, he says, Friar John Clyn of the Order of Minors and the Convent of Kilkenny, have written in this book the noteworthy deeds that happened in my time, that I know by faithful eyewitnesses or by worthy reliable report. Unless the writing should perish with the writer, and the work fail together with the worker, I am leaving parchment for the work to continue in case anyone of the race of Adam should be able to escape this plague and live to continue this work I commenced. He wasn't just expecting his own death. He thought that this might well be the end for the whole human race. After the high drama of that passage, he writes one more entry, banal by comparison, about the increasing prices of grain and spices. But then, nothing. Death has taken the historian along with all the others. At some point, though, another hand took up his pen and added a simple sentence to John Clyn's annals. Here the author died.